Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, I will now continue the unfinished story. Chapter 16. Isn't Storm City the city from my father's stormy hill? Levi muttered to himself. What Grimm described perfectly matched Levi's imagination of wizards. Strange, powerful, and mysterious. But we can't rule out the possibility that Grimm is really crazy. No matter what, at least the sea near Storm City might be a clue for me. Levi silently noted this down and flipped through some other content of the travel notes. None of them had anything to do with wizards, and he did not find any useful clues. He burned the travel notes. If only there was the internet. Levi sighed. Then, he threw himself into cultivation. He was very close to breaking through to level 3 of his breathing technique. This month, he would be able to break through to become a quasi-knight. During this period of time, when Levi was not cultivating, he would go to the bear pens of the 3 little bears every day to check on their physical conditions. If all 3 cubs could survive, then he would have 3 knight-level giant bears of the Northern Territory in the future. This would be the only one in the entire kingdom. At that time, he would not need to ride a warhorse. He would directly ride the giant bear of the Northern Territory and even forge a set of exclusive armor for the giant bears. The image of him riding a giant armored bear on the battlefield made Levi extremely excited, and his blood boiled. It reminded him of the scene in the fantasy movie Golden Compass in his previous life. This was a mount that suited the world of swords and magic. In order to let these 3 little ones grow up healthily, Levi had spent a lot of effort. 3 militiamen were sent to take care of the cubs 24/7. They were fed fish, wolf meat, venison, goat's milk, and cow's milk every day. Occasionally, the cubs were fed vegetarian food to prevent them from stunting or dying prematurely due to the lack of certain nutrients during their growth period. Levi would interact with the bears every day, using the most traditional and effective method to tame the 3 wild bears. That was to let them familiarize themselves with him. In fact, no matter how wild many mammals were, they could still gradually establish feelings if they were raised from a young age. Levi also bought a book on beast taming, Introduction to Beast Taming in the Circus, which included some works by scholars who studied the giant bear of the Northern Territory. Then, to Levi's surprise, after reading the Introduction to Beast Taming in the Circus, a new skill appeared on his proficiency panel. Black Snake Breathing Technique, Level 2, 4899/5000. Golden Cross / Level 3, 56/10,000. Special Effect, Advanced Vibration. Beast Taming, Level 1, 66/1000. It could work like that. Levi was dumbfounded. All this while, he had never been able to understand the standards of the skills recorded in the proficiency panel. The only thing he could be sure of was that combat techniques and breathing techniques could be recorded. Other than that, whether or not the other life skills could be recorded would depend on the mood of the proficiency panel. No matter what, Levi was very happy that he had an extra skill. Moreover, this skill was a practical skill. To him, it could be said to be a timely help. In order to verify his guess, Levi began to ask Sir Fred to buy books related to beast taming from all over the country. The Karen Beast Taming Manual. Royal Circus Beast Taming Notes. The High Mountain Tribe's Hawk Taming Method. In short, he began to purchase all kinds of beast taming books at a high price. One had to know that in this era, books were very expensive. However, in order to gain more experience, Levi could only take out a portion of his savings. This puzzled Sir Fred. "Young master, are you thinking of becoming a beast tamer?" Sir Fred didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "No, Sir Fred. I just want to use the right method to tame the 3 little bears. These little guys are too wild. Every time I go to them, they will roar at me," Levi said seriously. Alright, but we don't have much money in our account now. We only have 68 gold coins left, Sir Fred shrugged and said helplessly. Don't worry, Sir Fred. I know what to do, Levi replied. It would take some time to collect the books, and Levi had been using his own methods to tame the beasts. The most important thing was the temptation of delicious food. Which bear could refuse the fragrant roasted venison covered in honey? On one hand, the three little fellows were still very fierce towards Levi, but on the other hand, they ate his food quite confidently. For a while, Levi even suspected that he was playing Pokemon games. 7 days later, Levi's breathing technique had finally broken through to level 3. He felt that his entire body was filled with energy. When he was using the breathing technique, his breathing rate was far higher than usual. A large amount of oxygen was inhaled, and the oxygen content in his blood increased rapidly. All aspects of his physical fitness increased explosively. In the cold winter, wisps of faintly discernible white steam pervaded the surface of Levi's body. 3 streams of white smoke came out of his mouth and nose, and his bones and muscles roared. Like a sleeping cat, it let out a faint roar of an engine. After cultivating for more than a year, Levi finally reached the standard of a quasi-knight. He opened the proficiency panel. Levi Schneider. Black Snake Breathing Technique, Level 3, 1/10,000. I'm finally at level 3. Levi heaved a sigh of relief. The next step was to continuously polish his body. When his condition reached its peak, he would condense his own life seed at the peak of level 3 and become an official knight. However, a quasi-knight is already a dividing line. For most people who practice breathing techniques, more than 90% of them are stopped at this threshold, and only 1% of people have the possibility of breaking through to become an official knight. Levi stretched his muscles and bones, feeling the explosive power in his body. The current him did not need armor. He could also use sword skills to kill 5 mountain wolves. After becoming a quasi-knight, his physical fitness improved in all aspects. It should be more than 3 times that of an ordinary adult male, especially his own skin and flesh. Levi lifted his clothes, revealing his rock-solid 8-pack abs. His bronze skin was glowing, and he punched his stomach with 30% of his strength. It hurts a little, but it's okay. After all, my strength is several times that of an ordinary adult male. If an ordinary person were to use their fists and feet in a normal fight, it would be very difficult for them to cause any harm to me without attacking my vital points. This is the power of the black snake breathing technique. This was only a quasi-knight. Levi estimated that his physical fitness should be 5 times that of an ordinary person when he first stepped into the ranks, similar to Sir Fred, who had been an official knight for a long time. The strength of the excellent breathing technique was reflected. Once he became a grand knight like his father, his physical fitness would be 10 times that of an ordinary person. He would simply be a monster. Chapter 17. Year 1005 of the Holy Brilliance calendar, the month of Germinal. It had been some time since Levi's breathing technique had broken through to level 3. During this period of time, Levi had been carefully reading the miscellaneous books about wizards and beast taming that Sir Fred had collected for him. His beast taming proficiency increased rapidly. This was the first time Levi experienced an increase in his proficiency just by reading books. Not long after, he broke through in his beast taming skill. Beast taming, level 2, 1/5000. Levi had only read a small portion of the books on beast taming. There were many circuses in the Emerald Kingdom, and each of them had its own unique understanding of beast taming techniques. Every time Levi read these books, he would gain a lot of benefits. In addition, there were various ethnic groups, especially those who lived in wild areas such as mountains and grasslands. Many of them knew advanced beast taming techniques. Therefore, just by reading books, Levi felt that he could level up as a beast tamer. Apart from reading, he would also apply some of the theories in the book to the practice on the 3 little bears. These could also increase his proficiency. As for Levi's breathing technique, he had only gained a few hundred proficiency points this month. Under normal circumstances, it would take him about 2 years to break through to night level. The Black Snake secret medicine has to be put on the agenda. Levi started to have a headache. The current cash flow of the territory was only a few dozen gold coins. In addition, there were dozens of cows and more than 100 sheep in the manor. The total value of these things was not more than 100 gold coins, and they could not be sold. These were the basis for the survival of the serfs and also an important source of daily milk and meat products for Levi. Levi would not do something like draining the pond to catch the fish. If Levi had not sold the mountain wolf hide he had hunted for a good price in the past, he might not have been able to make a living. How can I get rich? Or rather, how should I use my proficiency panel to get rich? At this moment, Sir Fred walked in and said with a worried face, "Young Master Levi, little blacksmith Milan asked about his father again. His father is living well in the wild boar gang now. He's already the chief blacksmith. I've already said that I'll definitely think of a way to save his father, but the current situation, wait." Levi suddenly thought of something and rode the only 2 horses in the territory with Sir Fred to little blacksmith Milan's house. At this moment, little blacksmith Milan looked worried. It had been more than a year since his father was captured by the wild boar gang. Although the Lord said that he would help him save his father, he had not seen any movement from the Lord. "Little Milan, are you still worried about your father?" Levi was wearing a black cape and knight armor. He was riding a large horse as he slowly approached. "My lord, that's right." Little Milan knelt on the ground and said. Levi helped Milan up. "I can understand your feelings, but your father is safe in the wild boar gang now. The territory is in a difficult period now. We can't start a war with the wild boar gang yet. If we have 50 sets of knight armor now, I can lead Sir Fred to kill the wild boar gang and save your father," Levi said calmly. Little Milan lowered his head and said in a trembling voice, 50 sets? In this world, 50 sets of armor were not something even a small earl's territory could afford, let alone a small baron's territory like Levi's. Moreover, little Milan's skills were not enough to forge armor, which required excellent blacksmith skills. That was something that only official blacksmiths could forge. However, in Blackwater Valley, the only official blacksmith was his father, Old Toby. Old Toby could only forge 2 sets of armor in a year. 50 sets was an astronomical figure. It required an extremely huge amount of manpower, materials, and financial resources. "Don't worry. I'll do my best to help you. From tomorrow onwards, you will move into the castle and teach me the skills of forging and smelting," Levi said. "Ah, my lord, how can I trouble you with such dirty work?" Little Milan said in surprise. "It's settled then." After Levi finished speaking, he toured the blacksmith shop and carefully read through the forging process. He then took the only introductory forging book from the blacksmith shop and left with Sir Fred. "Do you really plan to learn forging?" Sir Fred didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Yes," Levi said. In this world, wars were constant and productivity was extremely low. Most of the territories were self-sufficient farmers. Levi had thought about it. If he developed other agricultural products, they would definitely not be competitive, especially since the Blackwater Valley was not suitable for agriculture. However, if he could develop forging, from the most basic farming tools to weapons and even armor, it would definitely have a very good future. As a lord, he knew how valuable armors and weapons were. If he could develop the forging industry in the territory, then he would not lack money for his own cultivation in the future. The reason why he was so confident was naturally because of his proficiency panel. As he spoke, Levi opened his proficiency panel. There was an additional skill on it. Forging, level 1, 1/1000. All along, Levi had been limited by the knowledge of the nobles in this world and thought that these physical labors were done by servants, so he had never thought of using the proficiency panel to practice forging skills. However, he was too short of money now. There was no other way. The territory lacked talents and resources. Therefore, he could only do it himself. It just so happened that he had nowhere to vent the brute force and energy that came from cultivating the breathing technique. He had just observed the entire forging process in Little Milan's blacksmith shop. As expected, a new skill appeared on his proficiency panel, forging. As long as it can appear on the proficiency panel, it'll be simple. Train hard and it'll be done. In the next few days, Levi sent people to move the blacksmith shop and asked Little Milan and the other blacksmith apprentices to move the forging equipment near to his castle. He also made a local smelting blast furnace so that he could learn forging more easily. Little Milan was also flattered. He didn't expect the Lord to be willing to be his apprentice. He was too friendly. Just like that, Levi had more and more skills that he needed to work on. However, he knew the importance of this. The breathing technique was always the first, followed by the golden cross / then it would be forging and beast taming. In just a month, Levi's forging had reached level 2. The speed was much faster than he had imagined. Life skills like these required a lot of experience. It was much easier than a combat skill. In his previous life, Levi had heard that if a person could focus on one thing for 1,000 hours, they could easily grasp many things that were difficult to understand. Time is the best teacher. The potential of humans is far higher than we can imagine. And continuous practice is the most important key to mastering all of this. Coupled with the extra effort, there would definitely be a reward, and the proficiency panel would always provide positive feedback. It was a piece of cake for Levi to learn these normal skills. 3 months later, he had successfully forged a fine-grade knight's sword, which was not inferior to the one that Little Milan had given him. Of course, this world's fine grade would only be considered trash in his previous life. After all, the smelting technology was backward, and it was impossible to produce high-quality iron. As for Levi, he did not know how to improve these, and his proficiency panel could not produce advanced smelting techniques from scratch. No matter what, this perfect forging directly increased his proficiency by 100 points. This made Milan, who had been a blacksmith apprentice for 4 years before successfully forging a fine-grade knight's sword, feel the difference in the world for the first time. Chapter 18. Time flew like an arrow, and the sun and moon flew like shuttles. Cultivate breathing techniques, practice sword techniques, forge iron, cuddle bears, read some leisure books. This cycle repeated itself, and the days passed quickly when he was grinding for experience. Spring passed and autumn came, and winter was coming. It was the month of northern wind in the 1005th year of the Holy Brilliance calendar. On the training ground, Levi and Sir Fred were moving around and competing in sword skills. Sir Fred only used one hand, and the storm-like sword attacks were difficult for Levi to block. In the end, Levi was defeated. Sir Fred smiled and said, "Not bad. Last year at this time, you could only last a minute under my hands. This year, you can last 5 minutes. Very straightforward," Levi laughed. He knew that Sir Fred did not even use 1/3 of his strength. With Sir Fred's talent in swordplay, even if he suppressed his strength to the level of a quasi-knight, Levi would still be no match for him. After training Levi, Sir Fred went to train the militia. Levi sat there and opened his proficiency panel. Black Snake Breathing Technique, Level 3, 3666/10,000. Golden Cross / Level 3, 4399/10,000. Special Effect, Advanced Vibration. Beast Taming, Level 3, Maximum. Special Effect, Wild Heart. Forging, Level 3, 1314/10,000, Special Effect, Fine Grade Certainty. In the past year, he had made great progress in the 4 skills that he had been working on. The slowest and most difficult technique to cultivate was undoubtedly the black snake breathing technique. In a year, he had only gained more than 3,000 proficiency points. Without the secret medicine, he would need at least 2 more years to reach level 4. This speed was fast, but Levi was not satisfied. This world was filled with danger. Without strength, one could only lower their head. For example, the wild boar gang bullied him and dared to snatch his people. And he really couldn't do anything to the other party. It couldn't be helped that they had the backing of the Wilderness Brotherhood. The cultivation speed of the Golden Cross / was quite fast. At this speed, he would be able to master Ripple Force in about a year. At that time, with Ripple Force, he would be able to fight an official knight even if he was a quasi-knight. As for beast taming, he had reached his limit. Levi had read almost all the books on beast taming available on the market. He also had 3 giant bears of the Northern Territory cubs as his targets, so it was not difficult to upgrade this skill. Levi was now confident that he could be called a master beast tamer in the field of beast taming. What made Levi overjoyed was that after the beast taming skill reached its limit, a special effect was born. This was something he had never expected. Wild heart, you can perceive the thoughts of most wild beasts by observing their movements and listening to their voices. You can use body language and special pronunciation techniques to communicate perfectly with the domesticated wild beasts. This was the effect of Wild Heart. The most direct change was that when the 3 little bears met Levi again, they were no longer afraid or fierce. Instead, they were very close to him. Levi could also magically sense the thoughts of the 3 little bears. This was a wonderful feeling. Therefore, with such a godly skill, the 3 cubs were all taken good care of by Levi. Their bodies had also undergone earth-shaking changes in the past year. They were now nearly 2 meters long and weighed more than 500 pounds. Of course, compared to their mother, who weighed several tons, they were still tiny. Without weapons, adult men could no longer subdue the cubs, and when the 3 cubs attacked together, even Levi, who was a quasi-knight, had to be careful. If one was hit by their palms, it would be hard to withstand with level 3 black snake breathing technique. Levi knew this when he saw the Siberian tiger smash the car window in his previous life. Never underestimate these cute-looking little guys. The most terrifying thing was that they were still babies that were less than 2 years old. Training the beast taming skill was only one of Levi's gains in the past year. The other skill that he was most interested in was his level 3 forging skill. Although this skill was not limited to level 3, it also had a special effect. Fine grade certainty, everything you forge will be of high quality. It was a simple and unadorned introduction to the special effects, but it was the key to Levi's plan to become rich. With this level 3 blacksmith, it would be very difficult for him to be extremely rich. After all, he was alone and did not have that much time to focus on forging. However, it would not be a problem for him to support his cultivation. In the past year, Levi had forged a total of over 100 knights' long swords in his spare time. Among them, 50 of them were high-quality ones, which he used to arm his militia. Before level 3 forging, he could only occasionally produce fine-grade long swords. However, after level 3, as long as the longsword was forged by him, it would definitely be fine grade. Even if an official blacksmith, Old Toby, came, he would definitely be far inferior to Levi in terms of high quality rate and forging efficiency. After all, Levi was a quasi-knight. Whether it was his stamina or his control over his forging strength, his upper limit was far superior to an ordinary person like Old Toby. However, if one wanted to become an official blacksmith in this world, it was not enough to only forge long swords. The difficulty of forging long swords was the easiest. The craftsmanship was complicated, and it represented the high-end achievements of this world's forging skills. It was the lifelong pursuit of every blacksmith. For Levi, who was already at level 3, the increase in his proficiency in forging a knight's longsword was negligible. Now, every piece he forged could only increase his minimum proficiency by 1 point. It was like a drop of water in the ocean when compared to the 10,000 proficiency points he had. As such, Levi decided to start forging knight armor. However, Levi's forging efficiency was too high, causing the iron in the territory to be insufficient. Previously, the iron ore used for smelting in the territory was mainly imported from other territories. However, due to the chaos in recent years, as an important strategic resource, the lords who owned iron ore in the territory rarely sold them. As for charcoal, there was no need to worry. With the endless Montenegro mountain range at its back, wood resources were inexhaustible for a small territory like the Blackwater Valley. Levi planned to sell some extra knight swords first. He had no plans to expand his army for the time being. He just needed to make a 50-man elite team. If he had too many people, the territory would not be able to support them. Next, he planned to look for iron ore in the Montenegro mountain behind his territory. He vaguely remembered reading some articles on how to find iron ore in his previous life. He could try it when the time came. Of course, now that the snow had sealed the mountain, whether it was selling the knight's sword or finding iron ore, these things could only be done in the spring of the next year. Levi temporarily stopped forging and focused on his breathing technique and sword skills. Year 1005 of the Holy Brilliance calendar, the month of winter. Levi, who was cultivating the breathing technique, was suddenly awakened by the faint howl of a wolf from the mountain behind the castle. His expression was solemn. From the sound, these wolf howls were not far from his castle. Just as he was about to ask about the situation, Sir Fred rushed in and said, "Young Master Levi, the territory has been attacked by wolves. There are hundreds of them. Many of the cows and sheep raised by the farmers have been eaten, and a few farmers have been dragged away. You stay in the castle and don't come out. I'll lead the team outside to kill the wolves." "What? I'll go too." Levi's expression changed. Because Blackwater Valley was located at the bottom of Montenegro Mountain, it was normal to encounter occasional wolf attacks. However, this was the first time he had heard of such a large-scale wolf attack. Seeing how determined young Master Levi was, Sir Fred did not stop him and said solemnly, "Then please don't leave my side, young master." Putting on their armor, riding their horses, and closing the castle gate, Levi and Fred hurried to the scene of the incident. Now that Levi had advanced to a quasi-knight and mastered the high-level vibration force, the militia under his command also had a knight's long sword, and Sir Fred was in charge. He did not believe that he could not subdue these beasts. Chapter 19. The wolves are here. The wolves are here. Run. The wolves are here. Help. Shouts resounded throughout the Blackwater Valley. One by one, the mountain wolves that looked as thin as bones were running around in the fields, in the cattle pen and sheep pen behind the houses. How could the livestock be a match for the ferocious mountain wolves? Damn it! Go to hell! The militiamen held long swords, simple armor woven from rattan, and wooden shields as they fought the wolf pack. However, there were also many people who were scared out of their wits by the terrifying wolves. Sam, the young man who had just joined the militia this year, held his knight's sword in a trembling hand. His limbs were trembling. Although he had mastered basic combat skills and his training results were among the best among the militia, he was still a young man who had just joined the militia. However, when he was facing the terrifying mountain wolf, the oppressive feeling and the bloody aura made him tremble uncontrollably. "Sam, what are you doing? Fight!" A militia captain shouted from afar. "Captain! My legs won't listen to me." The young man called Sam cried. His crotch was already wet, and soon, it would freeze in the cold winter. He was really scared to the point of peeing. It was just like how some birds would still be paralyzed on the ground due to stress after escaping from the claws of a raptor. Humans would also fall into a state of blankness after encountering sudden shock and fear. This was the kind of fear that was engraved in their bones before the era of civilization. A mountain wolf's eyes glowed with a green light as it roared and pounced at Sam. It had been hungry for a month. After not finding food for a month, it no longer cared about the fear of weapons and fire created by humans. It only wanted to eat meat, no matter if it was an animal, or a human. "Mom, I'm also going to throw myself into the arms of Heavenly Father." Sam closed his eyes, and his mind was a mess. Right at this moment, the sound of air being torn apart could be heard. A sharp arrow pierced through the sky and nailed the mountain wolf's head with lightning speed. The mountain wolf whimpered and fell to the ground. It screamed and died not long after. Sam was still in a daze. For a moment, he did not know if he was still alive. Until a broad and powerful hand patted Sam's shoulder. "The Heavenly Father will not accept cowards who give up struggling. Stand up, hold the sword in your hand, and fight with me." Levi walked over from behind and woke up the soldier who had been scared silly. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. How could such soldiers go to the battlefield? He still lacked actual combat. After saying that, Levi leaped up and arrived in front of another mountain wolf. Levi's arm shook like a phantom. The sharp blade was unsheathed, and it was the golden cross slash. High-level vibration force. Kaka. The mountain wolf's head was directly sliced off by the sword light. Blood spurted out and splattered all over Levi's face. He licked the blood at the corner of his mouth, drew his bow, and shot a hungry wolf that was digging out a cow's stomach 50 meters away. "Sam, don't be afraid. No matter how sharp a wolf's fang is, it can't compare to the sword in your hand. Continue fighting." Sir Fred came over and patted Sam's shoulder to comfort him. Sam wiped his tears and looked at the young lord who had chopped off the mountain wolf's head with a single sword strike. He was only 14 years old, 5 years younger than her. He was still a child. However, the bravery and fearlessness displayed by the young lord made him feel like a good-for-nothing. "Sam. What kind of man are you? What kind of man are you? Kill." Sam's legs trembled as he charged at the mountain wolves that were surrounding his companions. On the other side, Sir Fred saw that Levi had gone crazy and quickly followed. There must be a wolf king in such a large wolf pack. Moreover, to be able to rule such a large wolf pack, the wolf king's strength was probably not weak. Although no traces of the wolf king had been found so far, Sir Fred believed that the wolf king must be spying on everything in the dark. As expected, a long howl came from the mountainside. A mountain wolf king the size of an adult male polar bear coldly looked down at Levi and Sir Fred, who were on a killing spree. With its biological instincts, it could sense that the two people were very powerful, especially the middle-aged man. If it did not get rid of these two humans, the losses of its wolf pack might be even more serious than the last battle with the giant bear of the Northern Territory. After all, the intelligence and weapons of humans were incomparable to those of the giant bear. Moreover, it could smell the scent of the giant bear of the Northern Territory on the human youth. It had also sensed the scent of the youth on its dead companion. Therefore, the highly intelligent mutated wolf king made up its mind to get rid of these two humans no matter what. It jumped like a white ghost and quickly ran down the mountain. Even the cheetah's explosive speed was far inferior to this wolf king. To some extent, the mutated wolf king was no longer an ordinary wild beast. Like the night, it had broken through the strength limit of the mountain wolf pack and was no longer an ordinary wolf. At the foot of the mountain, beside Levi, there were already many corpses of mountain wolves. After discovering Levi, the demon god, the mountain wolves did not run away. Instead, they surrounded Levi fearlessly, trying to bite him to death with their numbers advantage. However, Sir Fred was always protecting Levi. As a retainer of the Black Snake family, his mission was to protect the safety of the Lord. Facing the pack of wolves, Sir Fred displayed his terrifying strength for the first time in front of Levi. The sword in his hand was like an impenetrable wall. Any mountain wolf that tried to sneak attack him was killed by Sir Fred with a single slash. Not a single mountain wolf could withstand a single strike from Sir Fred. However, Levi could also see that Sir Fred had already used the power of the breathing technique. He was breathing heavily, and his body was emitting white steam in the cold winter. His eyes began to turn from gentle to fierce. "Young master, a powerful enemy is coming. I will face it with all my might. Protect yourself," Sir Fred said coldly and called 5 militiamen to guard Levi. Levi nodded. He also saw a white line rapidly rushing over from afar. It was a giant white wolf that charged into the battlefield like a white bolt of lightning. The 3 militiamen in front of it were easily knocked away by it. One of them was even torn apart by the wolf's claws and died a terrifying death. "Wolf King," Levi said coldly. With the protection of the militia, he drew his bow and shot at the Wolf King with his maximum level archery. Even when faced with moving prey, Levi was always able to hit the target with 100% accuracy. However, this time, facing the Wolf King, although the arrow hit, it was pushed away by the Wolf King's sharp claws. "What kind of speed is this?" Levi was shocked. "Sir Fred, be careful. This Wolf King is not simple," Levi quickly warned. The strength of this Wolf King was definitely more powerful than an ordinary knight. To Levi, it was more terrifying than 100 ordinary mountain wolves. Chapter 20. Sir Fred's expression was solemn. He was wearing armor and holding a sword with both hands, preparing to attack. On the other side, the mountain wolf king leaped and crossed a distance of more than 10 meters. Its claws were as big as tiger claws as it slapped at Sir Fred. Sir Fred rolled on the ground and stabbed his sword into the mountain wolf king's stomach. Unexpectedly, the mountain wolf king twisted its body in the air like a nimble feline and dodged the sword. "Damn it, is this still a mountain wolf?" Sir Fred was shocked. He had been to many places in his life, but he had never seen such a strong mountain wolf with such skilled combat skills. This was definitely a knight-level battle strength. However, it was impossible for a mountain wolf to have a knight-level battle strength unless it had undergone some extremely rare mutation. Bang! The wolf claw collided with the knight's long sword. The Wolf King was in pain. He felt an extremely strong vibration force on the knight's sword, causing his claws to go numb. He knew that the person in front of him was not simple, so he did not dare to use his claws to fight head-on. Instead, he made use of his speed and agility to dodge Sir Fred's attacks and consume his stamina. Sir Fred saw through Wolf King's plan. After he stood still and confronted the Wolf King, he could see the determined killing intent and the shining wisdom in the Wolf King's eyes. "Kill them!" Sir Fred took the initiative to attack. He did not believe that he, a dignified knight, could not defeat a beast. On the other side, Levi knew that with his strength, it would be difficult for him to participate in the battle with the Wolf King. In order to reduce the population and property losses of the territory as much as possible, he began to clean up the ordinary mountain wolves' evil-doing in the territory. After he brought people to clean up the ordinary wolves, a group of people would surround and beat up the Wolf King. How could they not defeat it? With the militiamen around him, Levi's advantage in archery was fully displayed. Although he really wanted to use these wolves to practice his sword skills, under such circumstances, it was obviously not a good time to practice his sword skills. Thus, Levi's arrows were like the death god's death talismans, continuously taking away the lives of the mountain wolves. In the end, the iron arrows that Levi had brought were all used up. Except for the Wolf King's arrow, the other 36 iron arrows all hit the target, killing 25 of them on the spot. This achievement stunned the militia. With the help of Levi, the humanoid auto-aiming hack, the pressure on the militia, who had been suffocated by the wolf pack, was finally relieved. Without arrows, Levi could only fight in close combat like the other militiamen, wielding a longsword and wearing armor. As long as he was not surrounded by too many wolves, he would not suffer any fatal injuries. However, the ordinary militia couldn't. Their rattan armor couldn't defend against the terrifying bite of the mountain wolf. Levi saw that many of the militia were injured, some had been dismembered by the wolves, and some wolves were eating the corpses of his own soldiers. Levi's eyes were bloodshot, and his blood essence surged. He circulated his breathing technique with all his might and charged toward these beasts. Every perfect kill was accompanied by an increase in proficiency. By the time Levi reached the end, he could no longer count how many he had killed. His armor was already stained with wolf blood. Although these soldiers were his serfs, they were not worth mentioning in this era and could even be traded. However, they were also the sons and fathers of their families. They were living people. Now that so many people had lost their lives, Levi felt for the first time how worthless human life was in this world. The flames of war, evil spirits, and even these beasts could take everything away. I want to become stronger, but it's not enough. Levi roared in his heart as he felt a sense of hunger in his stomach. He knew that with his current realm, he could not circulate the breathing technique at full force for too long. That kind of intense energy consumption needed to be replenished accordingly. "Do you have any food on you?" Levi asked in a low voice as he felt a terrifying sense of hunger. At this moment, he was like a hungry wolf. The militiamen were shocked by him. They looked at Levi, whose eyes were bloodshot and looked bloodthirsty, and said with trembling voices, "No, no, my lord. I'll go get you something to eat." "No need." Levi directly tore off the hind leg of a mountain wolf under him. He did not care if there were any parasites or bacteria on it and directly started gnawing on it. Anyway, with the breathing technique, parasites should not pose any threat. Most importantly, if he did not eat something, Levi was worried that he would go berserk. Once or twice might not be a problem, but if he did this too many times, one day, he would fall into the abyss and be unable to turn back. Therefore, Levi had to prevent such a thing from happening. This incident had happened in a hurry, and Levi did not have enough time to bring enough food. It could be considered that he had learned his lesson. After eating half a wolf leg, Levi felt much better. He suddenly realized that he was no different from those hungry wolves. In the martial arts novels of my previous life, I'm probably the kind of terrifying demon who drinks raw meat and blood to become stronger. He could not help but mock himself. In the end, Levi led the militia to kill the mountain wolves in a frenzy. Most of the mountain wolves were killed. There should be more than 60 of them. The remaining dozens of mountain wolves did not care about the Wolf King anymore and ran into the deep mountains and forests. As for Levi, he had lost 7 militiamen, 12 serfs, 20 cows, and 30 sheep. Such a loss was simply adding insult to injury to the already poor Blackwater Valley. One had to know that in the entire Blackwater Valley territory, there were only about 300 families and less than 1,000 people. After I promote to a knight, I have to clean up the wild beasts around the territory. In this backward era, these wild beasts are potential dangers to the territory. It was a pity that he did not have a gun. Otherwise, Levi would have used his proficiency panel to train his marksmanship to the maximum level. He would have been able to kill as many mountain wolves as he could. Even if it was a wolf king, he would be able to take it down with one shot. On the other side, the wolf king, who was fighting with Sir Fred, saw that the situation was hopeless. It did not expect that the young man's archery was so accurate that it lost more than half of its subordinates in such a short time. Now, those remaining subordinates were so scared that they didn't care about the king and ran away. If the Wolf King continued to stay here, it would only die. It tried its best to dodge Sir Fred's attack, but its hind leg was still cut by the sword. Then, the Wolf King limped and quickly retreated. Its speed was so fast that Sir Fred could not catch up. "We let this beast escape." Sir Fred frowned. This Wolf King was too smart. This time, it had suffered a loss. It would be difficult to completely finish off the other party. It's fine. As long as we have the Wolf King's blood, we can give it to Little Fatty and the others. The Wolf King won't be able to escape, Levi said coldly. He was quite confident in the giant bear of the Northern Territory's sense of smell. Chapter 21. The territory was in a mess. Blood flowed like a river. There were corpses of livestock, humans, and even more wolves. Levi put away Frostmourne with a solemn expression. Bury the dead properly, and send the injured to Dr. George. Deliver the unfinished beef, mutton, and wolf meat to my castle. Then, peel off the wolf skin and sell it to the fur merchants. Next, I want to eliminate the root of the problem and completely eliminate the scourge hidden around our territory. Levi said to the old butler Alfred. Yes, my lord. The butler had yet to come back to his senses. The encounter just now was too terrifying. Those bloodthirsty and terrifying wolves appeared in droves. However, this young lord could freely and calmly hunt among these wolves. He couldn't help but think of the cold and stern Black Snake Knight, Baron Sauter. You're becoming more and more like your father. Butler Alfred muttered to himself and quickly went to do his work. Levi and Sir Fred returned to the castle. Sir Fred, let these three guys smell the blood of the Wolf King on your sword. Levi brought Sir Fred to the courtyard, where the three giant bears of the Northern Territory cubs that were the size of Siberian tigers were playing. Little White, Little Gray, Little Fatty, come here. Levi called out, and the three little bears immediately ran over. In the past year, Levi's expenses had been increasing to feed these three bears. Although he and Sir Fred could eat a lot, it was nothing compared to these guys who ate at least 10 kilograms of meat a day. The three of them were still young. Once they mature, they would have to eat nearly 100 kilograms of meat a day. Otherwise, they would not be able to support their huge bodies. Raising bears for 1,000 days to use it for a moment. Levi did not raise these three good-for-nothings as pets. In this era of scarce resources, such extravagant hobbies and ideas could only be realized in dreams. Huff huff. When the three cubs saw Levi, they jumped over happily and stood up. Then, Sir Fred let the three of them smell the blood of the Wolf King on his sword. After a year of training, with the help of Leonhart, Levi could clearly sense the thoughts of the three little bears. At this moment, after smelling the smell of blood, the three little bears immediately became agitated. Levi was the first to sense the thoughts of the three little bears. You're saying that this guy killed your mother? Levi asked. As the three bears were all male, Levi was used to calling them the three brothers when communicating with them. The three brothers nodded and rubbed their fists, eager to give it a try. They were still far from adulthood. However, ordinary mountain wolves were no longer their match. All right, take me to it now. Today, I will avenge your mother, my citizens, and my soldiers. Levi said coldly. My ripple force injured the Wolf King's hind legs, so it can't move properly. It can't go very far, and its strength has decreased. Now is indeed the best time to beat the drowning dog. When the Wolf King recovers, it will be difficult to hunt it again. Sir Fred said. Then I'll have to trouble Sir Fred to bring 10 of the strongest soldiers, and we'll enter the mountain, to hunt a wolf. After arranging the aftermath of the wolf disaster, Levi and the others followed behind the three brothers and headed up the mountain. The Wolf King's hind leg was injured, so it kept bleeding. Therefore, it was convenient for the three brothers to follow the Wolf King's scent. From the Wolf King's route, Levi could tell that the Wolf King was extremely intelligent. It kept trying to take detours, and several times, Levi and the others had reached a dead end. However, with Levi's maxed-out hunting technique and the three brothers' strong sense of smell, they finally found the Wolf King's lair in Montenegro Mountain after spending a lot of effort. On a huge rock, the huge wolf king was crazily tearing at a corpse that belonged to a mountain wolf. It was eating its own kind, but when it sensed Levi and the others approaching, it stopped and howled. From all directions, dozens of mountain wolves began to gather around it. The wolf king's eyes were bloodshot as it glared at Levi's group. It was the first to notice the three cubs. It was as it had guessed, this human had taken in the three cubs. What a beautiful creature. It's a pity that you're going to die. Levi looked at the wolf king and sighed softly. Then, he drew his bow and shot an arrow through the void. A mountain wolf blocked the path of the injured wolf king. It was shot by an arrow and died. The wolf king stared at Levi with terrifying and cold eyes. Levi felt as if he was not facing a beast but a person. Following the wolf king's order, the already injured wolves pounced toward Levi and the others again. Sir Fred, you go and stall the wolf king. I'll deal with the other wolves. After saying that, Sir Fred had already rushed forward. The wolf king stood up and staggered. Obviously, the injury on its hind leg made this king unable to stand steadily. If it was an ordinary knight, that sword might not be able to injure the wolf king so severely. However, Sir Fred's ripple force directly shattered the wolf king's leg bone from the inside out. The battle for revenge this time was going very smoothly. Not long after, Levi killed all the mountain wolves at the cost of 4 soldiers being injured. This time, he was well prepared and had brought a lot of iron arrows. As long as the soldiers created an opportunity for him to attack, he could kill all of them. In this battle, the three brothers also displayed their terrifying strength as the giant bears of the Northern Territory for the first time. They were only 2 years old, but they could already hunt mountain wolves. The battle on Sir Fred's side had also come to an end. The injured wolf king was no match for Sir Fred. In addition, Levi kept ambushing the wolf king and shooting arrows at it. In the end, Sir Fred used his most powerful ripple slash. Levi could even see the air rippling under the slash. Then, the huge head of the wolf king fell to the ground. Until the moment of its death, the wolf king's cold eyes had been staring at Levi. That feeling made one shudder. "Heh, what are you looking at?" Levi stepped on the wolf king's head. Such a high-quality wolf skin would be worth at least 5 gold coins if sold to those great nobles. Levi ordered his subordinates to start skinning the wolf king. This was money, and he could not waste it. "This is great. These damned beasts killed a few of our comrades. Now, we finally have our revenge. Tie these corpses to the sleigh and pull them down the mountain," Levi ordered. These wolf skins and meat could make up for some of his losses. At the same time, little Fatty of the three brothers suddenly ran to Levi's side and rubbed his head against Levi's as he growled in a low voice. Levi understood. When little Fatty was exploring the wolf king's lair, he found a cave with a strange human skeleton inside. Chapter 22. Levi did not pay much attention to it, thinking that it was the remains of some hunters that the wolf king occasionally hunted. He came to the cave. The cave was not deep, and there were many corpses inside. Most of them belonged to ordinary people, and there were even many children's corpses. This damned beast had eaten many people. No wonder people from his territory who entered the mountain would suddenly disappear every few years. The three brothers were currently surrounding a corpse, curiously sizing it up. Levi came to the side of the skeleton and found that it was unusually tall, more than 3 meters in height. Most importantly, compared to the other skeletons, this skeleton was complete. The other skeletons were all broken, and the skull and ribs were scattered all over the ground. It was obvious that the wolves had eaten it. The corpse leaned against the wall of the cave in perfect condition. Its hands remained in the posture of holding a sword in the air. It sat there without anger, like a king with a terrifying aura. It had been in this position for an unknown period of time. This person is so tall. Just his skeleton alone is 3 meters tall. How tall was he when he was alive? Levi was shocked, but thinking about it, it was normal. In this world, there were breathing techniques that could change one's fate. Many people were abnormally tall. Not to mention others, Levi himself was only 14 years old, but he was already 1.8 meters tall. When he finished developing, growing up to 1.9 meters would definitely not be a problem. Therefore, there was a high chance that this was a knight who had died here for some unknown reason. Moreover, he had died of natural causes and not been bitten to death by the wolves. Not only that, but the wolves were also very afraid of the skeleton. Therefore, even though the other skeletons had been shattered, this skeleton was still intact with only some wear and tear due to a long amount of time. Levi also noticed that there was an ancient iron ring on the little finger of the skeleton's right hand. On the iron ring were the words of the Emerald Kingdom, Melon. On one hand, Levi was constantly on guard to prevent the skeleton from turning into an evil spirit that could harm him. On the other hand, he was looking forward to finding something valuable on the skeleton, such as a treasure map. Unfortunately, he was disappointed. After studying it for a long time, he found nothing except the ring with the name Melon. Sir Fred also came in and took a preliminary look at the skeleton. This should be the skeleton of a knight. Moreover, from the fact that this skeleton can still be so dignified after death, high chances that it's an expert among grand knights. I think someone came here a long time ago and took away his armor and knight's sword. By the way, is the skeleton of a grand knight valuable? Levi blurted out. He was too poor and wanted to see if he could cash in anything. Sir Fred looked helpless. This can't be sold. Who knows what powerful forces or dangerous stories are involved in this skeleton? Of course, Levi knew. He was just asking casually. But then again, in the history of the Emerald Kingdom, I remember that the Black Snake Knight seemed to have mentioned a melon family, known as the Giant family. Their family emblem is the frost giant. They practiced the giant breathing technique, which was of excellent quality. However, that family was destroyed by the Church's Radiant Knights 800 years ago because of blasphemy. Could it be that this Grand Knight is a member of the Melon family? Sir Fred suddenly said. It's very likely. He's also a Grand Knight and has a ring engraved with melon. It shouldn't be wrong. 800 years ago, this place didn't seem to be our family's fief. Our family only became the Lord of Blackwater Valley 200 years ago. Levi suddenly understood. Perhaps this person escaped from the holy sword of the Radiant Knights and hid in the deep mountains, not daring to show his face until he died. Sir Fred guessed. Then I have to see if this person left any treasures behind, Levi said as he began to search the surroundings carefully. In the end, he confirmed that there was nothing special about the skeleton except that it might be a Grand Knight skeleton from the Melon family. Levi's interest waned, and he prepared to leave. He would slowly study the historical records in the future. However, little Fatty seemed to have discovered something and kept sniffing. Then, he found a spot and excitedly dug around the skeleton. Under his influence, Little White and Little Gray also started digging even though they weren't sure what was going on. This time, Levi was a little curious and stopped. Seeing this, Sir Fred smiled and shook his head, then went out to be on guard. Not long after, the three brothers dug a huge pit around the skeleton. Compared to the giant bears of the Northern Territory, Levi felt that the three brothers were more like groundhogs. Thud. It was accompanied by the sound of claws scratching something hard. Levi's gaze was instantly attracted. In the pit, there was an iron box that was a 1 meter square in size. Little Fatty looked at the metal box in satisfaction as if he was worthy of Levi's praise. Interesting. Levi did not expect the giant bears of the Northern Territory could be utilized like this. He patted the heads of the three brothers and rewarded them with the jerky that he had brought with him. He then called in a few soldiers. To prevent the iron box that could be a potential trap or a mechanism, he brought Sir Fred and the three brothers far away and ordered the soldiers to pry open the box. "What's inside?" Levi asked. "Lord, there seems to be a set of armor inside. Wow, my lord, there seem to be some gold coins under the armor. We're rich. We're rich, the soldier shouted excitedly. Levi was also happy. Sure enough, this place was very likely to be the last place where the Melon family's Grand Knight fled. He took the family's treasure and fled here. He might have died here because of serious injuries or some other reason. Just as he was about to go in and see how much money there was, he heard a soldier scream, "Ah! Damn it, this armor is actually alive. It's hitting me. It hurts." A few soldiers covered their heads and ran out. Behind them was an empty set of armor. At this moment, a soldier's knight's sword was held in its iron glove. With standard and superb knight sword skills, it beat a few soldiers to a pulp. "Let me handle it." Seeing this, Sir Fred did not have time to think about why the armor could come alive. He immediately unsheathed his sword and quickly fought with the armor. One person and one armor fought back and forth intensely. Levi subconsciously thought of evil spirits. After all, he was someone who had encountered evil spirits before. As for the fact that the armor could come back to life, Levi could not think of any other explanation other than encountering an evil spirit. Until he saw the chest of the armor, carved with the image of a frost giant that could stand tall and breathe cold air, and the words on it, "Melon." He rushed into the cave while Sir Fred was fighting with the knight's armor. He came to the skeleton and looked at the ring with the same word "melon" on the little finger of the skeleton's right hand. He had a bold idea in his mind. He pulled the ring off the little finger of the skeleton. Then, on the inner wall of the ring, he saw a row of tiny words. "Tailor-made magic armor frost giant. Which Gullwig's product?" Chapter 23. The moment Levi pulled the ring off the skeletal finger, the moving knight armor on the outside suddenly scattered into a pile of armor parts and piled on the ground. Sir Fred, who was fighting fiercely with the knight armor, finally heaved a sigh of relief. He was an official knight, but he couldn't subdue a pile of armor. It was simply unimaginable. This is an evil spirit attack. That's right. This is definitely an evil spirit. It occupied the armor and attacked us. I didn't expect it to be defeated by Sir Fred. He is too strong. Oh my God, the evil spirit has finally appeared in our Blackwater Valley. Merciful Heavenly Father, destroy these hateful evil spirits. The soldiers thought that the evil spirit possessed the armor, causing it to attack everyone. Sir Fred was silent. Although he had never seen an evil spirit, he felt that an evil spirit that could easily kill the Rock Bear Knight and the Frost Wolf Knight should not be this weak. But he couldn't think of a better explanation. Only Levi looked at the pile of armor, his heart filled with indescribable excitement. A wizard was found without any effort. Who would have thought that there would be clues about wizards in the back mountain of the territory? Now, I can be 100% sure that there are wizards in this world. At least, they appeared before. All this while, Levi, who had been searching for clues about wizards but to no avail, had once wondered if wizards were just legends. But now, looking at the words on the ring, he finally confirmed it. It's a pity that she didn't leave her contact information. This ring is also from 800 years ago. I wonder if this witch is dead. Speaking of which, Ms. Rowland from Grimm's Travels and Gullwig are both witches. Could it be that all the wizards in this world are female? If I really find a way to become a wizard in the future, would I have to change my gender? Levi thought about it but shook his head helplessly. He had only found some clues about the existence of wizards. He was still far from truly stepping into the realm of wizards and entering that strange and mysterious world. Obviously, this armor should be custom-made by Witch Gullwig for the Grand Knight of the Melon family. Perhaps the blasphemy of the Melon family 800 years ago is related to this. Thinking of this, Levi couldn't help but recall a religious story about a heavenly father he had read some time ago. This story came from the Codex of Creation compiled by the third Pope of the Church of Holy Light, which recorded the story of a heavenly Father. The heavenly Father selflessly let his 7 most loyal followers eat his remains in the mortal world. Those who eat the legs would gain God's speed, those who eat the ribs would gain God's endurance, those who drank blood would get God's boldness, those who eat the heart would get God's spirit, those who eat the arms can obtain God's power, those who eat the bones can obtain God's defense, and those who eat the brain would obtain God's wisdom. These 7 followers are called the 7 Knights of the Sky. They inherited God's speed, endurance, boldness, spirit, power, defense, and wisdom. Therefore, the black gas borne by the knights should essentially belong to the remains of the saints' God's power. It should be called holy power. God loves the world more than himself, and the world should love God like their parents. God nurtures knights with the flesh and blood of saints. Knights should set an example, be loyal to God, carry out God's will, and spread the glory of the Heavenly Father. This was the introduction to the origin of knights in the Codex of Creation. It was also why the officials referred to the black gas as holy power. It was unknown whether it was true or not, but in a miscellaneous note written by a scholar who studied folk religion, the story of the origin of the knight in the Codex of Creation also mentioned an interesting mythical story that was not recorded in the book. Among the 7 Knights of the Sky mentioned in the Codex of Creation, the knight who obtained God's wisdom was extremely ambitious. The Heavenly Father and angels in the heavens lived in the astral world. In the later generations of the human world where saints became extinct, this knight and his descendants used their wisdom that far exceeded mortals to steal the authority of the gods in the astral world with their mortal bodies. They wanted to obtain the most fundamental thing that made gods a god, divine persona. In short, this knight who should have practiced the concept of God in the mortal world wanted to ignite the divine fire, condense the divine persona, and become a god himself. This undoubtedly incurred the wrath of the gods. After so many years, the angels of the astral world descended to the mortal world, wanting to suppress this group of people with supreme divine power. In the end, they discovered that in the years when the gods were not around, this group of people used God's wisdom to study a series of destructive spells. With their mortal bodies, they mastered controlling the natural elements, and even the ability of life and death reincarnation that only gods should master. That battle affected the entire continent where the 7 kingdoms are located. There were even fallen angels, but in the end, the angels still won. The knight who obtained God's wisdom and his descendants were all destroyed. That group of people is the legendary wizards, and the first generation knight who inherited God's wisdom was the ancestor of wizards, Sauron. This is a legend I heard from a retired old priest. I have a feeling that wizards still exist in our world, but we have not discovered them. This was because Levi had collected quite a number of legends and books about wizards some time ago. Whether it was travel notes or unofficial history, he had read them all. Whether it was true or false, he was able to notice something when he put them together. At first, Levi thought that these were all myths. However, considering the history of the Melon family and which Gulwig who was behind the frost giant magic armor, it was not just a myth. Perhaps, there really are gods. Levi thought of a terrifying fact. The gods and the church are definitely hostile to a group with great potential like wizards. Perhaps this is why wizards rarely show their faces on this continent. Then should I continue to pursue the path of a wizard? Levi asked himself. In the end, he sighed in his heart. He could not answer this question for the time being. Time would tell him the answer. In the end, after confirming that there were no other valuable items there, Levi had the soldiers pack the armor into boxes. He still did not know the connection between the armor and the ring, nor did he know how to use it. He could only go back and slowly study it. He also had someone seal the cave. In the cave, only the tall skeleton was left, silently witnessing the changes of 800 years. Only the Church of Holy Light, the Colossus, stood behind and did not fall. Don't let anyone know about the encounter with the evil spirit today. That will only bring unnecessary panic to everyone. Otherwise, they'll be killed without mercy. Levi threatened. After knowing the church's attitude towards wizards, he felt that he had to be more careful when looking for clues about wizards in the future. Even a powerful family like the Giant family was destroyed by the Radiant Knights. It would be even easier for the church to destroy him. Chapter 24. Back in the territory, Levi counted the rewards he had gained from killing the Wolf King. It could be said that it was very generous. Including the ones he had killed in the territory, Levi had obtained a total of 108 mountain wolf corpses. Mountain wolf hides were the favorite fur of the nobles in the Northern Territory. Under normal circumstances, one piece was worth about 10 silver coins. In this world, one gold coin was worth 100 silver coins. In other words, Levi could sell these mountain wolf hides for 10 gold coins, which was equivalent to 1 or 2 months of the territory's financial income. As for the mountain wolf meat, Levi took out a portion offered as a condolence to the families of the deceased in the territory. The rest was stored in the castle. Anyway, the Blackwater Valley in winter was a natural refrigerator, so he did not have to worry about it going bad. Levi planned to make them into something like bacon if they were not finished by the time the weather turned warm. These three brothers were too gluttonous. Raising 3 giant bears of the Northern Territory was not something that an ordinary baron could afford. Wolf meat just happened to solve his urgent need. One had to know that the territory of these guys in the wild was often tens of thousands of square kilometers. Of course, the mountain wolf's value was nothing compared to the things in the iron box he got from the cave. There was a layer of gold coins in the metal box. Levi counted them and found a total of 327 gold coins. Moreover, since these gold coins were all cast 800 years ago, they were even more valuable than the current gold coins. If they were remelted, Levi estimated that they could be recast into 500 standard gold coins, which was equivalent to 7 to 8 years of income for his territory. In this era, many lords had their own rights to cast coins. However, in order to facilitate transactions, the kingdoms and nobles still set a unified coin standard. The number of gold coins circulating in the market was generally similar. But compared to the Melon family, this amount of gold coins is not much. It's just a drop in the ocean. The portion that I obtained should only be a small part of it. Levi was not greedy. With so many gold coins, he could buy 5 bottles of ambergris, which should be enough for him to break through to a night. However, even though he had obtained this windfall, Levi's goal of continuing to rely on forging to earn a lot of money did not change. After all, he needed a stable source of income for his long-term cultivation. He could not count on something as good as a free lunch every day. Of course, what Levi was most interested in was the armor that was sealed in the iron box. It was called magic armor, and it should be armor made by wizards using magic. After Levi's research over the past few days, he had finally figured out something. On the inside of his armor, he found some strange patterns. He guessed that these patterns were the magic circles of the wizards. He even found the instructions carved by the creator of the armor, Witch-Gullwig, for the Grand Knight of the Melon family. Fortunately, the words used by the wizards were no different from the ones used now. In other words, the wizards deliberately used words that ordinary people could understand in order to make it easier for the Grand Knight to read and understand. All in all, Levi now knew how to use this armor. Please note that Frost Giant is a custom-made armor produced by Ms. Gullwig. It needs to be activated by the Melon family bloodline or the user who has mastered the giant breathing technique. The Frost Giant armor is made entirely of mithril, and the following spells are fixed on it. 1 0-ring cantrip automatic assembly. After the master gives the command, the armor can automatically assemble around the master's body and adapt to the size of the body. The cantrip does not require ether stone, but it needs to be charged with the ether drifting in the world. The charging time is 1 day. 2 0-ring cantrip mirror master. After the master gives the command, Wear the armor and perform a battle technique. The armor will automatically store the master's battle routine and solidify it in the armor's memory array. It will automatically protect the master when the master is unable to move. However, the battle routine is rough and the actual combat effect will be weaker than the master. Do not rely too much on it. The charging time is 7 days. 3. First ring spell Frost Giant's Sigh. This spell is tailor-made for Mr. Melon. It can only be used by the Melon family bloodline or the Frost Giant breathing technique user. After using this spell, the temperature within a radius of 10 meters can be rapidly reduced to freeze the enemy. The charging time is 30 days. If you use Ether Stone, there is no charging time limit, but the number of times you can cast the spell per day will not exceed once. Lastly, once the custom-made magic armor is sold, it cannot be returned. A product from Gullwig must be of the highest quality. After Levi finished reading the manual, he felt very complicated. On one hand, through this manual, he saw the tip of the iceberg of a real and interesting world of wizards. On the other hand, he could not use such a good and awesome magic armor that was comparable to black technology. The ring is just a switch. The real key is the bloodline of the Melon family. It seems that this is a big deal between the Grand Knight and the witch. He asked the witch to make a heaven-defying armor for him or his family. Unfortunately, in the end, there was no way to reverse the situation. Before the death of the Grand Knight, he hid the armor underground. Perhaps he was looking forward to the day when his family's descendants could get this armor and rely on it to make a comeback. Even if someone else gets this armor, it's just a pile of scrap metal because they don't have the Melon family bloodline. Levi was unwilling to give up. He tried several times but failed. The witch was not lying to him. As for the giant breathing technique, it was essentially the same as the bloodline requirement. This was because the giant breathing technique was a typical bloodline breathing technique. It was the same as the black snake breathing technique of the black snake family. Non-bloodline descendants could not cultivate it. Moreover, even if Levi wanted to get the Melon family's bloodline through other methods, it was impossible because this family had long been exterminated. *CK, I can't use a divine artifact. Levi couldn't help but curse. It's not completely hopeless. After all, I have the proficiency panel. Others might not be able to cultivate the bloodline breathing technique of other families, but that doesn't mean that I can't. I can find an opportunity to verify it. If it's possible, I'll do my best to find the giant breathing technique. It was not just for this armor. Most importantly, Levi felt that if he were to search for traces of wizards in the future, this armor would be of great use. I have to find a way to check the history of the Melon family. Maybe I can find something useful in the dust of history. Levi took good care of the armor. This mountain wolf invasion could be considered a blessing in disguise. Not only did he earn back all his losses, but he also found clues to a new wizard. This made Levi even more determined to find a wizard. Of course, the most important thing now was to cultivate the black snake breathing technique. Breathing techniques were the foundation of strength. It's time to buy ambergris. Levi made up his mind and prepared to leave the territory to prepare the ingredients for the black snake secret medicine. Chapter 25. Year 1006 of the Holy Brilliance calendar was the month of vitality. It was another year when the grass grew and the birds flew. It was the season when all things revived. It had been a few months since the wolf disaster in Blackwater Valley, and the lives of the people had returned to the right track. After clearing out the wolf pack led by the Mountain Wolf King, there were very few traces of wolves. Levi judged that there should only be a pack of mountain wolves in this Montenegro mountain in his territory. Although his act of extermination might change the ecological balance of this small area, Levi could not care less. Besides, even if the snow deer and wild rabbits were to populate, they would be nothing but food for Levi, who had maxed out his archery skills. On this day, Levi wore a light chainmail and a linen robe. In the entire Blackwater Valley, only he and Sir Fred had chain mail. This kind of armor with complicated workmanship was relatively expensive. So far, there was no way to distribute it to all the soldiers. Young Master Levi, you must pay attention to your safety. The people of the Northern Territory are tough, and the recent war in the kingdom has led to an increase in the number of bandits and wandering knights who have lost their fiefs. Although you have already advanced to a quasi-knight, you still have to be extremely careful. Don't casually come into contact with strangers. Run if you can. Money is just a worldly possession. You are the last hope of the Black Snake family. Sir Fred's face was solemn as he nagged. His tone was like a mother before her child left for a long journey. Levi smiled. Don't worry, Sir Fred. I'm already 15 years old. I can take care of myself. I'll have to trouble you to take care of the territory while I'm away. Sir Fred nodded, and Levi waved his hand. Carrying a big bag, he quietly left the territory in the quiet night. His cultivation speed was getting slower and slower, and he needed more and more resources to cultivate. This time, he had to solve 4 problems. The first was the purchase of ambergris required to concoct the Black Snake secret medicine. The second was to find a buyer for the weapons and armor that he had forged. It would be best if they were long-term stable and reliable buyers. The third was to collect more breathing techniques, especially bloodline breathing techniques, and see if he could cultivate multiple breathing techniques at the same time. If he could, he only needed to find a way to find the giant breathing technique and use the frost giant magic armor. At that time, Levi's strength would have a qualitative change. The fourth was to try his luck and see if he could find some clues about the wizards. After solving the first 3 problems, Levi could cultivate the breathing technique without any worries. As for the fourth one, he would leave it to fate. It would be best if he could find one. If he couldn't, he would take his time. Just the path of becoming a knight was enough for him to work on for a long time. The destination of Levi's trip was Icewind City, which was located a few hundred miles east of the Blackwater Valley. It was located in the Icewind territory of the Earl of Silver Mountain and was also the largest city within a radius of 1,000 miles. It was one of the 4 major cities in the northern region. If he wanted to buy something as rare as ambergris, he would have to go to a big city. Levi was worried about having someone else do it, so after thinking about it, he decided to go by himself. Firstly, his strength had undergone an earth-shattering change. He had been a quasi-knight for some time now. Coupled with advanced vibration stage of the Golden Cross / and his top-level archery, he was not completely powerless even if he faced a knight. Therefore, if he encountered any unexpected situation, he should be able to deal with it. Moreover, he was only going shopping, not to fight, so under normal circumstances, there would not be any danger. However, just in case, Levi had made sufficient preparations for this trip. He had prepared a few dozen caddies of dried rations and meat, as well as 50 arrows. The iron arrows were too heavy and inconvenient to carry around. In addition, he carried a few high-quality knight swords that he had forged himself. He wanted to use these swords to open up his market in the Northern Territory. Of course, he left the best quality for his soldiers. As long as there was iron, he did not lack weapons. He did not intend to dominate the world. He was satisfied as long as he could have a fully armed elite army of a few hundred people to protect himself in the Blackwater Valley and not be bullied by evil forces like the Wild Boar Gang. The main focus should still be on cultivation, and the rest could only be considered side tracks. Levi did not ride a horse. With his quasi-knight physique, the horse was not much faster than him. Instead, it would attract attention. After all, anyone who could ride a horse was not an ordinary person in this era. After walking along the muddy path with half-melted snow for a day and a night, the evil spirit that he was most worried about did not appear, which made Levi heave a sigh of relief. He was afraid of encountering these undead ghosts that were ineffective against physical attacks. However, on the second day, at a pass that he had to pass to enter the Icewind territory, trouble still came. A group of yellow-skinned, emaciated, and ferocious bandits blocked his way. The leader was a burly man in cloth armor, holding a large saber in his hand. "Little guy, if you don't want to meet the Heavenly Father, then obediently put down the things in your hands, put your weapons on the ground, and raise your hands," the leader said. "That's right. We, the Wild Grass Gang, kill without batting an eye." "He he he." One of the bandits laughed. Levi looked around and saw a total of 13 bandits. Based on their appearance, they were all dressed in tattered clothes and looked malnourished. There was a high chance that their professional skills were not very good. The person in the lead was quite something. He should be at the standard of a quasi-knight. Levi could feel the faint white mist on his body, which was a sign of his breathing technique. He threw everything on the ground and quickly drew his bow. The arrow pierced through the air and shot directly at the quasi-knight. However, the other party was clearly mentally prepared for Levi's retaliation and dodged the arrow. "Very good. It seems that you are prepared to die." He put on the iron helmet on his waist. This was the only knight equipment he had picked up on the road, which could prevent his head from being shot. However, in that short moment, Levi shot 2 more arrows. However, his target was no longer the leader. With his maxed-out archery skills, he did not need to aim. The 2 arrows shot out like flowing water and directly exploded the heads of 2 ordinary bandits. They did not have much equipment. In fact, they had never thought that there would be someone in this world who could train to such a terrifying level in archery. Even the master archers of the kingdom would have to admit that they were inferior. "Damn it!" The brawny man quickly ran over and slashed his saber at Levi. The others also surrounded him from all directions. They had to close the distance between them and the master archer as soon as possible. Otherwise, that kid could kill them all by himself. Seeing this, Levi smiled and pulled out Frostmourne from his waist. White smoke rose from his body. Chapter 26. White smoke rose like smoke. Levi stomped his foot and exploded. The knight's sword turned into an arrow that left the bow and pierced through the void. Vibration force. Thud. The brawny man with the knife instantly felt his hand with the knife split open. The violent shaking almost made him throw the knife away. "This is quasi-knight. You're also a quasi-knight. How is this possible? How could there be such a young quasi-knight in such a remote place?" The brawny man found it hard to believe. Although this youth had a strong build, one could tell from his face that he was not very old. He was at most 17 or 18 years old. Such a young quasi-knight was either a disciple of a great noble with abundant resources or someone with true talent. "Aren't you the same? Are you afraid?" Levi grinned. With a backhand slash, the sword directly broke the brawny man's rusty chopper, which was of poor quality. The blade snapped. The brawny man looked at the half-blade and was dumbfounded. While he was still in a daze, Levi's sword had already pierced through the brawny man's simple cloth armor and stabbed into his chest, shattering it. Then, Levi drew his sword and stood up. All of this happened in a flash. The other bandits did not expect Levi to kill their boss so quickly. They had all witnessed their boss's strength. Before this, they had already successfully carried out several waves of robberies under the leadership of their boss. Although they were all small-scale robberies against poor civilians who did not have much money, to begin with, their boss had already left an invincible impression in their hearts. Therefore, when their boss decided to establish the Wild Grass Gang and develop in this area, they agreed without hesitation. Now, their boss's corpse was lying in the snow. They panicked and began to scatter. Naturally, Levi would not let them go. Since they dared to rob him, they had to be prepared to die. After a few arrows, those who were running were all shot dead and fell to the ground. Those who were still alive saw that it was impossible to run away, so they knelt on the ground and began to beg for Levi's forgiveness. "Sir, please don't kill us. We are all ordinary people. We just want to make a living. I didn't want to kill you. I just wanted to rob you of the rations you are carrying to fill my stomach. I'm telling the truth. Please believe me. You can't kill me. I still have a blind wife at home to support. I beg you." These people spoke one after another, and their eyes revealed an extremely strong desire to live. It was as if the teenager in front of them was a terrifying death god. "Go," Levi said calmly, his eyes flickering. "Thank you, you are a good person. We won't dare to do it again." These people were bewildered, but in the end, they turned around and started to run. Levi looked at them coldly and began to draw his bow. On the snowy ground, Levi found some dry wood and piled the 13 corpses together. Then, he used a flint to light a raging fire. "Let the flames warm your world after death," Levi muttered to himself with a gentle and calm tone. Among the 13 bandits, the youngest was about his age and was still a child. Levi believed that most of them were telling the truth before they died. It was difficult for people to lie when they were in extreme fear. However, what did this have to do with Levi? If he didn't have the strength, he would be the one who would be destroyed. There were many reasons for these people to become bandits. The most important reason was that they were created in this chaotic and dark era. However, there was only one reason for their deaths: they wanted to harm Levi. In the end, after Levi collected a dozen silver coins from these poor people, he continued on his way. Not long after, he arrived at Icewind City. From afar, he could see the giant silver-white city among the mountains, as well as the most eye-catching white Holy Brilliance church in the center of the city, which had a hint of Gothic style. Not bad. Compared to my father's Flower City in Tulip Hill, it's not inferior. Flower City is exquisite and gorgeous, while this Icewind City is magnificent and has a clear Northland style. After showing his pass, Levi entered the city smoothly. Compared to his desolate Blackwater Valley, which had a total population of less than 1,000, Icewind City was too lively. Just the population of the permanent residents of Icewind City alone numbered 100,000. In addition to some illegal households, traveling merchants, and travelers, the population of Icewind City would only increase. Of course, this couldn't be compared to the modern cities in his previous life, which had a population of millions or tens of millions. However, compared to the early medieval period in Europe, which had a similar level of product development, it was still much stronger. However, it was understandable. After all, the size of the Emerald Kingdom was many times larger than Europe. Levi did not delay. He brought his luggage and headed directly to the largest merchant association in Icewind City, Jade Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce was naturally not simple to be able to be crowned with the name of Jade. It had the backing of the royal family and the shadows of a few Grand Dukes, such as the Duke of Montenegro. If he wanted to invest in the Jade Chamber of Commerce, he had to be at least an earl. Therefore, this was a super chamber of commerce jointly established by a large noble family, which almost monopolized all walks of life in the Emerald Kingdom. The one in Icewind City was only a branch, and the headquarters was in Emerald King City. Levi touched the heavy gold coins in his arms and felt relieved. He now had a few hundred gold coins on him, so he could be considered a tycoon. "Hello, do you have ambergris?" Levi asked. He wasn't worried about being recognized. He was just an unremarkable little lord in the Northern Territory. There was no internet in this era, and he hadn't made a name for himself. Who would recognize him? When the staff of the Chamber of Commerce heard that the customer was asking about ambergris, he knew that the customer in front of him was rich. Moreover, there was a high chance that he was a knight who practiced breathing techniques. He was already used to it. "I'm sorry, sir. There's no ambergris in the shop now. If you sigh, don't go. You can look at other things. Levi's figure had already disappeared from the street. Fortunately, I've already mentally prepared myself. If even the Jade Chamber of Commerce doesn't have ambergris, then there's only one place in the entire Icewine City that might have it. If it doesn't have it either, then I'll just go home and slowly work on it. It's just a matter of spending more time. Levi casually bought a white wolf mask from a gift shop. After putting it on, he walked around the streets and alleys. Finally, amidst the melodious sounds of harps, playful whistles, and the laughter of men drinking, he arrived in front of a warm tavern. The tavern's dim yellow lights were lit in the evening. Through the window, he could see the furnace burning inside. On the wooden sign at the tavern's entrance, it read, "Shining Tavern. Entrance ticket for today, Lion King's Spirit. Come, come, my friend. Drink this cup of Lion King's Spirit. May you shine like a Leonhart knight in the future." At the entrance of the tavern, a burly man stood there. Everyone who entered had to pay a gold coin to buy a glass of the Lion King's Spirit. Then, they had to drink it to prove their wealth and courage. This was because the Shining Tavern was a tavern on the surface, but it was an underground trading market in secret, commonly known as the Black Market. Chapter 27. No one knew when the Shining Tavern began to appear in the major cities of the kingdom. Not only in the Emerald Kingdom, but the Shining Tavern also left traces in the other 6 countries. This was an organization that covered the entire continent. It had many functions such as underground transactions, bounty commissions, and so on. Of course, in the eyes of the ordinary people who were rejected by the exorbitant price of 1 gold coin, this was a place for the filthy rich and the royal family to have fun. There were scantily dressed beautiful women everywhere. Many of them came from foreign lands and had a unique charm. Inside and outside the tavern were 2 different worlds. Levi's father was a Grand Knight, so he naturally knew about the Shining Tavern. If possible, he did not want to enter. But now that the Jade Chamber of Commerce had run out of stock, he could only try it here. "Give me a glass of Lion King's Spirit." Levi took out a gold coin and handed it to the burly man who had the strength of a knight. To be able to let a knight-level powerhouse guard the door, it could be seen that the Shining Tavern was not ordinary. This was a magical organization that seemed to be somewhat detached from the nobles, the royal power, and even the theocracy of the church. 1 gold coin could buy a cow, a good knight's long sword, and a high and mighty priest of the Church of Holy Light in Icewine City to pray for you. But here, it was only worth a glass of wine. Of course, this was also an admission ticket. The burly man handed over a glass of wine that was shining with a faint golden light. "Drink it and you can go in." This was the Lion King's Spirit, used to commemorate the powerful legendary knight, the Leonhart Knight. There were only 7 types of wine in the entire Shining Tavern, and they were rotated 7 days. As an entrance ticket to the tavern, they were all sold for 1 gold coin. Lion King's Spirit, blood wine, 100 flowers wine, snow beer, black rum, gold spirit, and nameless wine. Other than that, there was no other wine. These 7 wines were said to be in memory of the 7 deceased legendary knights. Lionheart Knight Rhine, Blood Knight Brad, Flower Knight Elena, Snowflake Knight Flair, Black Knight Blake, Golden Knight Gregor, and Thousand-Faced Knight whose real name no one knew. Therefore, many people guessed that the big boss behind the Shining Tavern must be the legendary knight. That was why he could open a black market in the 7 countries and under the nose of the nobles and royal families in the major cities. Levi was not worried that the wine would be poisoned. After all, the reputation of the Shining Tavern was very famous in the underground world. After drinking, he walked into the tavern, and the liveliness and noise hit his face. The scent of hormones was mixed with the strong smell of alcohol. At the bar counter, a beautiful lady boss was drinking 100 flowers wine. Many people in the tavern wore masks like Levi, but there were also many who were bold and skilled and showed their real faces. The boorish men were drinking and flirting with the maids in the tavern. Then, they were scolded by the lady boss, but they did not dare to talk back. As everyone knew, anyone who dared to attack the staff of the Shining Tavern would not have a good ending. Levi passed through the noisy crowd and arrived at a domed room behind the tavern. This was where the tavern's trading market was located. In front of simple stalls, people were selling their goods. There was also a large wooden sign with various commission contents written on it with chalk. These commissions were all personal commissions, and the Shining Tavern was only responsible for the platform. There were all kinds of content, so it gave birth to a profession that specialized in accepting commissions in exchange for rewards, bounty hunters. Many wandering knights had become bounty hunters. Levi walked around the market and finally stopped in front of a person wearing armor. There was a small black bottle in his stall. Even though the lid was closed, the thing inside still emitted a strange and charming fragrance. Levi had smelled this fragrance many times when his father was concocting secret medicines when he was young. It was ambergris. 200 gold coins per bottle. No bargaining. This armored man was obviously an official knight. Levi could feel the powerful aura from him. Although he was not as powerful as Sir Fred, he was still as dazzling as a flame in front of him. Ambergris has always been sold at 100 gold coins per bottle. The price is stable. How can you sell it at 200 gold coins? Levi couldn't help but say. The knight sneered, "You still want to buy ambergris with 100 gold coins? If you think it's too much, you can go to the Jade Chamber of Commerce and see if you can buy it." Now, in order to advance to a legendary knight, the White Horse Knight of the royal family has almost monopolized all the ambergris in the Jade Chamber of Commerce. There is basically no ambergris on the market. If you don't want to buy it, don't stop me from doing business. This knight obviously had a bad temper. Levi thought to himself, no wonder the Jade Chamber of Commerce was out of stock. It turned out that all of them had been bought by the White Horse Knight. Of course, Levi knew about the White Horse Knight. He was known as the strongest genius of the Jade royal family in the past 1,000 years and the number one person below the legendary knight. Levi had no choice. He did not want to wait for the price of ambergris to drop. Who knew when that would happen? "How many bottles of ambergris do you have here?" Levi asked. "How much do you need?" The knight looked at Levi. 2 bottles. Levi had 500 gold coins on him now, and he was going to buy ambergris. Even if it was expensive, he had to buy it. With 2 bottles of ambergris and the Black Snake secret medicine, it should be enough for him to break through to an official knight. "All right, I didn't expect you to be so rich despite your mediocre strength. You should be a noble son in the Northern Territory," the knight said to himself. However, since Levi did not reply, the knight did not bother to ask for trouble. Levi took 2 bottles of ambergris from the knight. After checking that there was no problem with the goods, Levi threw down 400 gold coins, which was equivalent to more than 5 years of his territory's financial income. His heart was bleeding. "You're lucky. If I didn't need money urgently, I could have earned at least 100 gold coins more by selling these 2 bottles of ambergris at the Shining Auction the day after tomorrow. If you still need ambergris in the future, you can look for me at the Shining Tavern." After the knight finished speaking, he hurriedly took the gold coins and left. It was obvious that this guy had a way to obtain ambergris. After buying the ambergris, Levi achieved the most important goal of this trip. He still had more than 100 gold coins on him. He planned to buy a bloodline breathing technique and go home to see if the proficiency panel could break the bloodline restriction and allow him to cultivate the breathing techniques of other families. After walking around, he did not see anyone selling breathing techniques. Levi could only wait for the Shining Auction the day after tomorrow. This was a small auction held in the Shining Tavern on the last day of every month. There would be some precious items auctioned there. There were definitely breathing techniques. When Levi was young, he had once participated in the shining auction in Flower City with his father. At that auction, an extremely rare and excellent quality non-bloodline breathing technique was sold for an astronomical price of 5,000 gold coins. Chapter 28. There was still some time before the shining auction, so Levi found an empty space and started setting up his stall. There was no need to pay for the booth fee. It had already been paid in the glass of wine in the tavern's entrance ticket. How rich is this shining tavern? In the true sense, it's as rich as a country. Levi placed the knight's sword that he planned to sell in front of him, feeling envious. Compared to the shining tavern, the Jade Chamber of Commerce was nothing. Levi estimated that this tavern in Icewine City could earn hundreds of gold coins a day just from the cost of the wine alone. In a year, it would be tens of thousands of gold coins. This was almost the annual income of a high-level earl. Levi's father had wanted to invest in the Shining Tavern, but even with his identity as a Grand Knight, he could not find a way to invest in it. Moreover, the Shining Tavern has never seemed to accept new shareholders. "Buddy, how much is this sword?" A person wearing the same white wolf mask stood in front of Levi's stall. "Fine quality long sword, 2 gold coins per piece. No bargaining. We can accept custom orders and large quantities of purchases. You will need to provide a design for custom orders," Levi said in a low voice. "It's a little expensive." The man turned around and left. Levi was not in a hurry. He was still very confident in the knight's sword that he had created. 2 gold coins were definitely not expensive. Those who could enter the Shining Tavern were basically local big shots or knights. Levi believed that there would be people who knew what was good for them. Not long after, a muscular knight wearing an iron helmet stood in front of Levi. A heavy meteor hammer hung from his waist. Judging from his aura, he was obviously an official knight. "Buddy, I heard that you accept the custom production of weapons and armor." Levi raised his head, and the expression under the white wolf mask changed slightly. "It's another official knight, and his aura is even stronger than the official knight who sold me ambergris. He's also using a meteor hammer, so he should be cultivating a strength-based breathing technique." Levi analyzed in his heart. "That's right. You need to provide blueprints, weapons, defensive equipment, and even some special firearms to customize them. As long as you have the design, I can do it," Levi said confidently. "It seems that you are an impressive blacksmith," the official knight said in a calm tone. "It's all right. I'll buy these 2 swords. In addition, I hope that we can reach long-term exclusive cooperation. The weapons and defensive equipment you forge will be sold to me first, and you can't sell them to other lords. As for the price, I can buy them at a price that is 20% higher than the market price," the knight said. At the same time, he threw 5 gold coins on the stall, allowing Levi to successfully earn back the money for the drinks. "No problem. The transaction location will be set at the Shining Tavern," Levi said. With his strength, it would be easy for others to rob him if he were to trade outside. However, no one could cause trouble here in the Shining Tavern. The black market had its own rules. "Sure, it's a pleasure working with you. How I should address you?" "White Wolf Gerald." Levi touched his mask and suddenly remembered a game from his previous life. "All right, Mr. Gerald. Let's meet at the Shining Tavern on the last day of every 3 months. I hope you can come on time. I need a large number of weapons, armor, and horse gear. These are the design drawings. By the way, Sir White Wolf, I wonder if you're interested in joining a great organization with a limitless future and a bright future?" the knight suddenly asked, but before he could finish, he was interrupted by Levi. "No, I don't." Levi refused decisively. The knight was silent for a moment before he suddenly smiled and said, "If you change your mind, you can tell me when we meet again in the future. Then, The knight left the shining tavern. Levi looked at the man's back excitedly. With that, the problem of sales has been solved. I know that the quality of my forging will definitely not be a problem. The special effect of fine grade certainty is no joke. That should be a knight from a certain territory. It seems that his ambition is not small. He bought so many weapons and defensive equipment and even wanted to pull me into his team. He must be plotting something, but what does this have to do with me? Levi shook his head. In any case, no one knew his identity. Even if that person purchased weapons and armor to rebel, he would not implicate him. Meanwhile, in a mansion somewhere in Icewind City, the heavily armored knight who had finished his deal with Levi took off his iron helmet, revealing his scarred face. He knelt on the ground, and in front of him was a half-naked, muscular man who was breathing in and out white smoke. "Vice President, I found another good blacksmith and have discussed a collaboration with him." The knight lowered his head and said, "Not bad, wild-boar knight. I'm very satisfied with your recent performance. The Lord of the Wilderness will definitely see your loyalty and hard work." The muscular man who was called the vice president put on his clothes. When he stood up, he was 2.5 meters tall, like a small giant. Even the wild-boar knight seemed small in front of him. "I haven't been to Brotherhood's headquarters for a long time. How's the situation with our equipment?" The brawny man put on his armor and asked. "Currently, our Brotherhood has a total of 2,500 sets of defensive equipment and weapons, as well as 1,000 alpine warhorses. After years of hard work, we have dozens of blacksmiths forging the equipment we need every day. We are also looking for new blacksmiths in various ways across the country to purchase weapons and equipment to speed up our improvement," the wild-boar knight said. He was a small leader in charge of the production of weapons and armor. Other than being an official knight, he was also a skilled blacksmith. "Yes, not bad, but it's far from enough. If we want to overthrow these greedy and hateful nobles, we need at least 10,000 fully armed cavalrymen and hundreds of official knights who will charge into the front lines. I'm only one step away from becoming a Grand Knight. After I advance to become a Grand Knight, our Wilderness Brotherhood will have 2 Grand Knights. Our actions won't be so restricted," the Vice President said. "Congratulations, my lord." The wild-boar knight's expression was excited, and it seemed to be sincere. "Oh right, the deal with the lamp spirit last time was pretty good. With the help of the lamp spirit, I successfully broke through from a high-level knight to the realm of a peak knight. My breathing technique has also improved. I guess I still need the lamp spirit to help me advance to a Grand Knight. I'll have to trouble you with this matter." The Vice President took out an ancient black snuff bottle. Chapter 29. Holy Brilliance Calendar Year 1006, the last day of the month of vitality. The Shining Auction was held in the Shining Tavern as promised. The auctioneer was the beautiful and sexy Lady Boss. She wore revealing clothes and came to the center under the hungry gazes of the brawny men. The auction officially began. Levi wore the white wolf mask and sat in the last seat. With his wealth of 100 gold coins, he should only be able to buy one item at this auction. After all, those who could come to the Shining Tavern were all rich people in the northern region. In this era where nobles were everywhere, and these titles were common, who was not a noble? Every month, there would be 10 items on auction, and they were usually entrusted by the members of the tavern. According to Levi's knowledge, one could become a member of the Shining Tavern by paying 100 gold coins in one go, and the membership would be valid for 5 years. During the period of validity, members could enjoy free admission, and service fees for auctions would be waived. Levi knew that many of those D*MN rich nobles were members of the tavern. For example, his father was a noble Shining member when he was alive, but unfortunately, membership could not be inherited. The first item was a knight's sword. With Levi's current level 3 forging skills, he could tell that the craftsmanship of this knight's sword was very exquisite, far superior to his own. It should have been made by a master, and its design was simple and unadorned, a little like the craftsmanship of the past. This is the sword of a grand knight of the Vigicid family from 100 years ago. It was forged by the craftsman, Flaming Hammer Hagrid. It's a divine weapon. Whether it's for real combat or collection, it has a high price. The starting price is 10 gold coins, and each increment must be no less than 5 gold coins. With the lady boss's charming voice, the atmosphere was ignited. Oh my god, the first item is already so awesome. The Flaming Hammer, a famous craftsman in the Northern Territory 100 years ago. He was once the royal blacksmith. His products must be the best. A blacksmith who knew the industry exclaimed. Levi was also surprised. In the past year, he had learned about the history of forging in the kingdom from Little Milan and some forging books. The Flaming Hammer was definitely an amazing blacksmith. In essence, blacksmiths were not divided into realms like knights. However, people still divided blacksmiths into 3 ranks according to their fame and the quality of their forging. The current Levi was a blacksmith apprentice. However, as a level 3 blacksmith, he should be considered an advanced apprentice. He was only one step away from completing his apprenticeship and becoming an official blacksmith when he would be able to forge armor. Above blacksmith apprentice was an official blacksmith. Little Milan's father, Old Toby, was one. The armor worn by Sir Fred and Levi was made by Old Toby. Unfortunately, Old Toby was snatched away by the Wild Boar gang, but Levi would get him back sooner or later. Those who had reached the peak of their forging career and were recognized as forging masters by the nobles and knights of the kingdom were called blacksmith masters. Such a person would receive a large number of commissions every day. Countless noble knights would beg to have a divine weapon forged for them. They had a noble status, and they were definitely treasures in any force. The difference between an official blacksmith and a blacksmith master was comparable to the difference between a knight and a grand knight. In the end, this knight's sword made by a blacksmith master was bought by a rich noble at the price of 100 gold coins. No matter how good the knight's sword was, it was definitely not worth 100 gold coins due to the limitations of technology in this era. It could only be said that the value of the blacksmith master's brand was too great. Levi was also determined to continue forging. Once he became a blacksmith master, he should be able to achieve freedom in wealth. The second item up for auction was a knight's plate armor made of the best ghostly iron produced in Rocky Mountain. It was said that a thumb-sized mithril had been melted into it. Compared to ordinary iron, ghost iron had much higher performance in all aspects, but its melting point was also extremely high, making it very difficult to forge. Mithril, on the other hand, was a legendary material. It could only be produced in places where meteorites fell from outer space. According to Witchgullwig, mithril was an extraordinary material recognized by wizards. It was the most cost-effective material for conducting ether. This knight armor was sold for 480 gold coins. This trashy plate armor is far inferior to my frost giant magic armor, and it can be sold for a few hundred gold coins. Mine is made entirely of mithril, so its value can't be measured in mortal gold coins. Finally, it was time for the breathing technique segment that Levi needed. Everyone, the breathing technique that we are auctioning this time is a package of 2. They are the Frost Wolf breathing technique of the Frost Wolf family and the Giant Bear breathing technique of the Rock Bear family. The starting price is 100 gold coins, and each increment must not be less than 1 gold coin. Although these 2 breathing techniques are shallow quality, as breathing techniques of nobles, they still have some collection value. If there are breathing technique collectors present, you can consider them. The lady boss seemed to be worried that these 2 breathing techniques would not sell, so she spared no effort in promoting them. Hearing the lady boss's words, Levi's expression changed. He did not expect that the item being auctioned was the breathing technique of his 2 neighbors. It seems that the descendants of my 2 neighbors, Frost Wolf Knight and Rock Bear Knight, have been reduced to selling their ancestral breathing techniques for a living after their father died. However, these two breathing techniques are only at the shallow level. Moreover, they are bloodline breathing technique. Other than me, no one else would buy them. At the auction house, the other nobles and knights began to discuss. However, after a while, there were only scattered bids. In the end, when Levi raised the price to 120 gold coins, no one else bid. Levi successfully bought two bloodline breathing techniques for 120 gold coins. This price was reasonable. If it was a non-bloodline breathing technique, even if it was a shallow one, it would cost at least a few hundred gold coins. The bloodline breathing technique was a priceless treasure to the disciples with the noble bloodline, but to most outsiders, it was of little value. After all, they couldn't be used for cultivation. They could only be used for collection. Even if the nobles had money, they wouldn't spend it like this. Especially in this era of war, money should be used on weapons, defensive equipment, and necessities like food. After the auction ended and Levi received the breathing techniques, he hurriedly left the auction site. He changed into a new set of clothes and went to the Jade Chamber of Commerce to prepare the other ingredients for the secret medicine. Other than ambergris, the other ingredients were very common. As for the snake blood required for the secret medicine, Levi bought a basket of white crystal snakes, which were unique to the cold climate of the Northern Territory. In addition, Levi also strolled around the library and bookstores in Icewind City. He spent a lot of money buying anything that might be related to wizards. After that, Levi hurried through the night. This time, he took a more remote mountain path. Other than encountering some wolves along the way, he did not encounter any bandits. Year 1006 of the Holy Brilliance calendar, the second day of the month of grass. When the travel-worn Levi arrived at the Blackwater Valley, Sir Fred, who was in the castle, finally relaxed when he saw Levi return. Chapter 30. Young master, you're finally back. Sir Fred opened the city gate for Levi to welcome him. Nothing happened in the territory while I was away, right? Levi asked. Everything is normal in the territory. Did your trip go smoothly? After exchanging pleasantries with Sir Fred, Levi returned to his room. This time, he had spent all the gold coins at the bottom of the metal box. Levi had become a pauper again overnight. But I gained a lot this time. 2 bottles of ambergris, 2 bloodline breathing techniques, a stable sales channel for weapons and armor, and some miscellaneous books. Levi had basically achieved his goal for this trip. Now, everything was ready. All that was left was to concoct the secret medicine. The next day, Levi had a good night's sleep, and the sky was bright. The concoction of the black snake secret medicine did not require any technical work. This was different from the alchemy in his previous life. It did not require any fire refinement. He only needed to mix them according to a fixed ratio and then knead them into small pills. Therefore, Levi successfully concocted 200 secret medicine. If too much of the secret medicine was mixed, the effect of the ambergris would be diluted too much, resulting in it not being effective. According to the formula, these 2 bottles of ambergris could be used to make about 200 pills. If he took 1 pill a day, it would be enough for Levi to cultivate for the next half a year. After concocting the secret medicine, Levi swallowed it. After preparing the food, he could not wait to start cultivating the black snake breathing technique. His breathing technique cultivation has been delayed since he spent 2 days outside. About an hour later, Levi completed 1 round of breathing technique cultivation. Black snake breathing technique proficiency plus 10. Taking the secret medicine is really different. Under normal circumstances, I can only increase my proficiency by 1 to 2 points by circulating the breathing technique once. With the secret medicine's enhancement, my proficiency increased by several times. Unfortunately, at the level of a quasi-knight, I can only take 1 secret medicine a day. I can't take more than that. Going too far is as bad as falling short. After taking the black snake secret medicine, he could clearly feel that when he was circulating the black snake breathing technique, there was a cold current flowing through his body. This cold current seemed to be the effect of the black snake secret medicine. With the support of this cold current, Levi maintained a high level of concentration and was in an extremely efficient state of cultivation. After cultivating the breathing technique, wisps of white gas began to spread out from the pores of Levi's body. After the white gas passed, some black stains were expelled from his body. The black snake secret medicine actually has such an effect, expelling some of the impurities in my body. After eliminating the toxins, he took a shower and felt relaxed. Levi took advantage of the fact that he was still in a good state to practice the golden cross slash. That's right. The black snake secret medicine seems to be able to help people maintain a high level of concentration, thus increasing their efficiency and entering a state of enlightenment. Therefore, not only the breathing technique but also the cultivation effect of the sword skill is far better than usual. This is good stuff. Not only that, Levi did not know if it was his imagination, but he felt that after consuming the black snake breathing technique, his physical fitness had improved slightly. He guessed that it might be a special effect brought about by the first time he consumed it. After practicing the breathing technique and the golden cross slash a few more times, he completed today's cultivation mission. Then, Levi took out the frost wolf breathing technique and the giant bear breathing technique that he had bought at the auction. These two breathing techniques were both shallow breathing techniques, and they were also bloodline breathing techniques. Among all the breathing techniques, they were the least valuable. Levi was the first to open the giant bear breathing technique legacy scroll. On the goatskin parchment, there was a picture of a small person similar to his own black snake breathing technique. The small person was in all kinds of different postures. If the black snake breathing technique was strange, then the posture of the giant bear breathing technique small person had big movements. It was more like some fierce fist techniques from his previous life. In the middle of these small people was a huge bear the size of a small mountain. The huge bear roared at the sky and emitted a wild aura. This was the clan emblem of the rock bear family, rock bear. It's obvious that the giant bear breathing technique is a breathing technique that focuses on strength. This is a complementary technique to my black snake breathing technique. Levi then looked at the other frost wolf breathing technique. The contents of the legacy scroll were similar to the giant bear breathing technique. It was nothing more than a few small figures in different poses, surrounded by a silver-white giant wolf in the middle. This was the frost wolf family's crest, silver frost wolf. Levi noticed that the appearance of this giant wolf was actually somewhat similar to the mountain wolf king he had killed. It was not just its appearance, but its expression and aura. However, since the mountain wolf king was already dead and had turned into ashes, it did not matter if it was related. Frost wolf breathing technique is a breathing technique that focuses on reaction speed and agility. Not bad. If I can learn these two breathing techniques, with black snakes as the main defense, rock bear's main strength, and frost wolf's main speed, wouldn't I be a polygon warrior? Levi smiled. Let's start with the frost wolf breathing technique. My strength is still alright. I have the armor and the black snake breathing technique for defense, so I don't lack them for the time being. What I lack the most now is speed and flexibility. All martial arts in the world are invincible, only speed is invincible. Let's see if I can put the frost wolf breathing technique into the proficiency panel first. As long as it can enter the panel, let alone a breathing technique, even if it's a god's forbidden spell, I'll think of a way to bring it to the maximum level as long as I have the time. The proficiency panel was Levi's greatest reliance. It seemed that this cheat was ordinary and could only reflect proficiency. However, this was the most awesome part of the cheat. It meant that some extremely difficult things were all reflected through the proficiency of data. On the other hand, Levi only needed to play games to increase his proficiency. Where there is hard work, there must be something to be gained, and there must be feedback. Cultivation was no longer blindly based on experience and rough perception. Instead, there was a clear reference and a detailed goal to continuously advance. It was not something that could be completed in a day or two if one wanted to learn the basics of breathing techniques. It took Levi half a month to learn the black snake breathing technique. Although the frost wolf breathing technique was at the shallow level, it would still take some time for Levi to fully understand the postures of the pictures. Levi did not stay idle while he was cultivating the breathing technique. It was as if his energy was endless. Whenever he had free time, he would go and forge. He was going to study the blueprint that the knight had given him and try to forge armor. In 3 months, he would have to hand over a batch of goods. As the days passed, Levi's life was extremely fulfilling. In the courtyard of the castle, the 3 brothers were also growing up happily. As a huge amount of food entered their stomachs, their bodies were expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a period of time, they would grow a little bigger. Year 1006 of the Jade calendar, the 3rd day of the month of flowers. Levi also learned from Sir Fred that his 2 neighbors, the heirs of Frostwind Territory and Rock Hill, had sold their ancestral fiefs and moved to Icewind City, becoming the lowest landless aristocrats. The buyer of the fiefs was the Church of Holy Light. It was said that the church wanted to build a new church in the Silver Moon territory so that the holy light of the Heavenly Father could warm the people in this extremely cold land. Levi cursed in his heart. He always had a premonition that his peaceful life would be broken by the arrival of the church. Chapter 31. However, even with the church's arrival, Levi believed that he was a well-behaved person. As long as he did not provoke the church, they would not do anything to him. It was just that he couldn't afford to miss out on paying the tithe and various other church taxes like before because the emperor was far away. It couldn't be helped. The church was the one who set the rules of this world. Regardless of whether the gods were real or not, the 7 Orthodox churches were well-deserved giants. In the Emerald Kingdom, the Church of Holy Light was the sky. In the end, it's because I don't have the strength. If I had the strength of a Grand Knight, I would be able to stay away from worldly disputes and protect myself anywhere in this world. And if I become a legendary knight, just like the Shining Tavern that is rumored to have a legendary knight overseeing it, I will directly open the black market in the cities and territories in the various kingdoms. You won't be able to say anything if I don't pay taxes to you. In an era where miracles did not appear, legendary knights were gods in the mortal world. Therefore, Levi's goal was clear. He also wanted to become a legendary knight and become a god in the human world. In the blink of an eye, the month of flowers had passed. According to Sir Fred's intelligence, the church had acted quickly. They had just sent away the masters of Rock Hill and Frostwind Territory, and then they started to order the serfs in the territory to build a church that was even more magnificent than Levi's castle. At the end of the month of flowers, Levi practiced the frost wolf breathing technique step by step according to the legacy scroll. It's already been a month. I've only been cultivating the black snake breathing technique for half a month. Does the bloodline breathing technique really require a bloodline? Levi was unwilling to accept this. Logically speaking, he should be able to learn the basic level of the breathing technique in a few days. However, he had been cultivating the basic level of the frost wolf breathing technique for a month and still had not learned it. This made him a little discouraged. I'll hold on for another month. If it doesn't work, I'll try the giant bear breathing technique. If the second technique doesn't work either, I'll give up. That magic armor can only be melted into mithril and reforged into ordinary armor. Levi muttered to himself. It would be a lie if he wasn't disappointed. However, this month was not a fruitless one. With the help of the black snake secret medicine, his black snake breathing technique's proficiency increased by 1,000 points in just 1 month, which was more than twice the normal rate of cultivation. According to this speed, he could become an official knight before he finished the black snake secret medicine. The prerequisite was that he had successfully condensed the life seed. The proficiency of Golden Cross / had also increased by more than 1,000. He had also made a breakthrough in forging. This month, he had been forging armor plates. This was a delicate job, much more difficult than forging a knight's sword. As it was his first time forging, Levi was not very familiar with it. Coupled with the fact that he had a lot of things to do recently, it took him a month to finish the main parts of the armor. On this day, Levi was hammering on the forging table in the castle again. He used the cold forging method to forge the armor. The knight had asked Levi to design something similar to plate armor. This kind of armor was relatively easy to make, and it was better than the cumbersome chain mail. Moreover, only this kind of plate armor could defend against crossbows and longswords on the battlefield. Chainmail could only defend against some ordinary bows and arrows, but it was lighter. Levi's upper body was bare, revealing his strong muscles. The last part of the plate armor, the breastplate, was also gradually taking shape under his repeated tempering. In the end, with the notification of proficiency, Levi's set of plate armor, which was specially designed for that night, finally took shape. As for Levi, he could be considered an official blacksmith. Forging proficiency plus 101. The sharp lines, the rough beauty, the heavy temperament, and the metallic fragrance made Levi admire his masterpiece with satisfaction. Not bad, not bad. Let's set the price at 25 gold coins per set. Levi thought to himself, under normal circumstances, the market price of this kind of plate armor is about 20 gold coins. However, with the buff of fine grade certainty, the quality of his own equipment would definitely be better than those forged by ordinary blacksmiths. It was not expensive at all to sell them for 25 gold coins. Only nobles and knights had the money to buy a full set of armor that was worth 20 oxen. It was already good enough for an ordinary quasi-knight or an attendant to have a part of it. It couldn't be helped. The most important reason was that this world's productivity was backward, and iron production was extremely low. After transmigrating to this world, Levi realized how blissful he was in his previous life. Even though he was a noble, his happiness was far from what it was in his previous life. The comfort and convenience brought by technology would only become precious once he lost it. I've gained hundreds of forging proficiency points just by forging this plate armor. This is really a big project. Once I forge a few dozen pieces, I should be able to advance to level 4. I wonder if the special effects will change. Levi. Black Snake Breathing Technique, Level 3, 5011/10,000. Golden Cross / Level 3, 5427/10,000. Special Effect, Advanced Vibration. Beast Taming, Level 3, Maximum. Special Effect, Wild Heart. Forging, Level 3, 2008/10,000. Special Effect, Fine Grade Certainty. Levi looked at the proficiency panel. Although there was no change in the number of levels compared to a few months ago, the progress bar had made significant progress. As soon as he put away the armor, he saw Sir Fred walking over. He had been waiting here for a while. "Sir Fred, what is it?" Levi asked after putting on his clothes. "Young master, the people from the church are here." Sir Fred shrugged and said. "How many people came?" "Just 2. A priest and an official knight." "Then let's go take a look." Levi put on his noble attire. For safety, he wore a layer of chainmail underneath. Ever since he learned about the dangers of this world, Levi had been wearing a 2-layered chainmail when he slept. There was also a piece of heart-protecting armor on his chest. It was very uncomfortable, but it was safer. Outside the castle, a priest in a white holy light robe was accompanied by a church knight in silver armor. He stood outside the castle gate and waited for the master to open the door. "Sir Abraham, Baron Blacksnake is really rude. He actually made us wait in this poor place for so long." The slender knight said unhappily. As an official knight of the church and a member of the Radiant Knights, he was respected by everyone wherever he went. The priest glanced at the knight and said calmly, "Knight Glimmer, don't be impatient. Your weakness will be caught by the enemy." As the castle gates opened, Levi and Sir Fred slowly rode out on their horses. Levi had a smile on his face as he dismounted and gave a standard noble salute. "Dear Priest Abraham, I sincerely welcome you to Blackwater Valley." Part 2 of the series ends here. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like and subscribe so we can be motivated to make even better videos in the future.